Hey guys, I hope everything is going well with you at home and that you're not feeling too caged up being at home with your family and that you're doing some fun things with them. Today I wanted to talk to you about plotting points on the Cartesian coordinate system. So I have that drawn right here in front of me. I have attached a PDF of some graph paper to my school, and I hope that you will print out a sheet to work on and take notes on. It'll just make it a lot easier, because if you have to draw it yourself, it can get a little bit messy. So first thing I want to just talk about are the two axes that are drawn on here. So you'll notice that I have them labeled like this. This one is called the x-axis, and then this one is called the y-axis. Sometimes people have a hard time remembering which is which. So if you label this one with a capital Y, most times people do it with a lowercase, but if you do a capital Y, the tail of the Y runs the same direction as this axis right here. So you'll always remember that that one's Y if you do it with a capital Y. The other way you could remember is that when we've looked at number lines before, we always look at just this horizontal direction. That is labeled as X because they usually go alphabetically. So X is the first one that we've learned, and Y, which comes after it in the alphabet, is the second one that we've learned. Okay, so first of all, there is this special point right here where the two axes cross, and this point is called the origin. And basically everything happens from that point. All right, and we'll see that in just a minute when we start putting points on the graph. The second thing you should notice is that these two lines right here chop this page into 4 separate sections right here. Each of these sections is called a quadrant. Let me spell that for you. Q-U-A-D-R-A-N-T. And we number them as 1, 2, 3, and 4. This one is quadrant 1. And I'm not just being fancy when I put that as a Roman numeral. We do number them in Roman numerals. You might think that we would go clockwise like this, and this would be quadrant 2, but in fact this is quadrant 2. Again, I'm using Roman numerals. This one down here is quadrant 3. Just to save space, I'm going to write Q3 because we're going to need to plot some points in there. And then this one is called quadrant 4. Okay. And then the other thing that you should know is that if we would like to locate a point on here, think of this kind of as like if you played Battleship, how you give 2 coordinates to tell where a ship is located. We're going to do the same thing here. The first thing we do is we locate it in terms of the x-axis, and then second in terms of the y. So I'm just going to put a point on here. Let's say this point, and we would call that first by where it is along the x-axis. So how far do we have to go over until we get right under that point? And so we would say 5 is the x-coordinate, and then how far do we have to go up or down to get to it? So from 5 we would go up 2. So this point would be called 5, 2. The first point indicates the x-axis, where you go along the x-axis, and the second one is where you would go along the y-axis. Now this point right here is called an ordered pair. Let me write that down for you. Okay, hopefully you understand the word pair. It means that there are 2 things there that they're giving us. And then the ordered means that the order is significant, that 5 coming first and that 2 coming second is different from if we reverse them and 2, 5. Because again, this first number in the ordered pair is the x value, and the second is the y value. This is called, that first number is called the x coordinate. Right, and the second one right here is called the y coordinate. All right, and again, they go in alphabetical order, so just remember that you want to make the x one go first and the y one go second. All right, so let's see what would happen if we plotted the point 2, 5 instead, so that you can see that the order is significant. If we went 2, 5, that would say go over 2 on the x-axis and 5 on the y-axis, and that would take us to right here, which would be 2, 5. Now I forgot to mention this. that when we're looking at the x-axis, these are numbered, and so from the origin to the right, they increase in the positive direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When we start at the origin and go left along the x-axis, notice how we end up getting the numbers, the negative numbers on the number line, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and so forth. In fact, we drew these earlier in the year when we were talking about adding and subtracting integers. All right, the y-axis starts at 0 here, again at the origin, and then when it goes up, it's increasing in the positive direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so forth. And when we go down, it's negative. Now, I skipped the -1 just because it's getting crowded in there, but that tick mark indicates that that's -1, then -2, -3, -4, and so forth. If you have graph paper, it's easy to stay nice and neat with this because you've got the lines already drawn. If you don't, here's what I want you to be cautious about, and I'm going to draw it very poorly because this is what I see a lot, is that we get this right here, we get this right here, and imagine that these the grid marks aren't there, that people will go like this and put this as 1, and then this as 2, and then this as 3. See how inconsistent they are? It's important that you do not do that, that you evenly space them if you're drawing this by hand. Things will just look really out of whack as soon as we start doing these more next week when we have to plot points that follow a certain pattern. So make sure that you do not do this, that you don't space them irregularly like that. Once you decide that 1 is 2 squares, 2 has to follow the same pattern, and so we would have to put 2 there, and then 3 would also be 2 blocks, and so forth. Okay, so let's just practice plotting some points here for a second. So I am going to ask you to, actually, let's put a dot right here. You tell me what that is. So think about that for just a second. All right, so if you thought that that was the point 2, because we had to go over 2 on the x-axis, and 0, because we had to go 0 in the y direction, you would be correct. All right, how about this one right here? All right, think about what the coordinates of that one would be. All right, if you said that that's -5, +1, you would be correct because you'd go over -5 on the x-axis, up 1 in the y direction right there on the y-axis. All right, how about, let's say this one. Oh, sorry, I just realized that first one might have been cut off. Okay, this would be the point -7, -5. All right, and then how about this one? That one right there would be, we don't go anywhere on the x-axis. It doesn't tell us to move left or right, and then we would just go down 5. So this would be 0 on the x, -5 on the y. All right, last one is what are the coordinates of that point right there, the origin? And hopefully you said 0, 0. That's what it would be. Don't go left or right, don't go up or down, just stay at that beginning point, that origin. All right? Okay, I'm going to switch to a different piece of paper now because I want us to practice, you practice plotting. So I'm going to zoom in on this for just a second. I want you to make sure that you draw an XY axis right here. All right, so let me tell you what you're going to do. So first draw that, and then I'm going to zoom in here. I want you to write these points down. All right, so if you need to pause the screen here so that you can look at it, that's fine. But they're the points 2, -3, -4, -1, 6, 0, -5, 2, and 0, 4. And I want you to pause right now, and I want you to use your graph right here, and I want you to plot them. And I also want you to, where appropriate, tell me what quadrant it's in. 2 of them will not be in a quadrant because they lie on an axis, but the other 3 will be. So pause and then come back when you're done. Okay, so I'm going to plot them. So our first point A, we would go start from the origin, and it says go over 2 and down 3. So we would end up right here That would be point A. Point B, you would go -4 in the x direction. So from the origin, go left, and then down -1. Right, so that would be point B. Point C says go over 6 in the x direction, but don't go up or down. That's 0 on the y. This would be point C. Point D is start from the origin, go -5, so over to the left, and then +2 up. That would be D. And then point E is 0 on the x-axis, 4 on the y-axis. That would be right there. All right, and then let's list what what quadrants they're in. Point A, right, this one down here should be in quadrant 4. I'm just going to write Q4 again, just to save space. -4, -1, that point B was in quadrant 3. Point C is on an axis, so we don't consider it in a quadrant. I'm just going to put that it's not applicable there. -5, +2, that was point D. That puts us in quadrant 2. And then the last one is 0, 4, and that is also not in a quadrant. Okay, next one, again, you're going to have to pause the video for just a second because now I've plotted 5 points and I want you to copy them down on your a second XY coordinate plane, and I want you to tell me what the coordinates are of each of those. Now I want to point out that I did something a little different last time, and you'll see this fairly frequently, is that people don't take the time to label every tick mark. So in this example, I just did every other one. I only did the evens, but I left a spot for the odds. So this one would be 1, but I didn't label it, but I did label 2. I skipped 3, I labeled 4. I skipped 5, I labeled 6. A lot of times people do that. If we have a bigger graph, sometimes people only do it every 5, so they'll skip 1, 2, 3, and 4 and just do 5 and 10 and so forth. If you don't like that on yours, when you go back, when you draw your own, you can fill in all the numbers if you'd like. But again, that's pretty typical for people to do that. All right, so after you copy them down, pause, and I want you to write the ordered pairs that go along with that. Okay, so I'm going to fill these in. So point A is right here, right? So I had to, from the origin, I had to go over 3 and then up 3. So this would be the ordered pair 3, 3. For point B, which is down here, I had to start at the origin and I had to go over 6 and down 5. So this should be the point 6, -5. For point C from the origin, I had to go over 2 in the left, which is -2, and then up 1. So it's the point -2, 1. For point D, I did not move left or right from the origin. I just went down to -4. So this would be 0, -4. And then point E, I went from the origin over 5 in the left, so that's -5, and then I did not go up or down in the y direction, so it's -5, 0. All right, and then as for the quadrants, A is in quadrant 1, B is in quadrant 4, C is in quadrant 2, D is not in a quadrant because it's on the y-axis, so that's not relevant right there. And same thing with E is not in a quadrant, it's on the axis, so that's not relevant there. Okay, that is the end of the video. You're going to watch the next video for an activity, so as soon as you get everything, fix your mistakes and such here, go watch the next video. All right, bye.